So, hi, I'm Sarah Reinertsen, and I am the daughter of Don and Solveig Reinertsen, who were family camp directors here at Koinonia. I started coming here in 1975 when I was just an infant, and for close to a decade, at least a decade or longer, we came up here every single summer. And it's a magical place. It's like, it was the greatest thing to have this as your backyard and your playground all summer long. But more than the place, Koinonia is about the people and the community that we brought together. It's amazing how the families that would come summer after summer really did become families to us. And it was such, it's just, I have such fond memories here, and I'm grateful that we are looking to the future, because this place is so important and so many more families need to come, and we need to bring that community back. And so, I always think that there's so many cool things to do here, whether it's hiking, and going to the beach, and Bible studies, and even songs. And I really have to shout out to the music, because I know my dad's the music director, but it's the people that sing. And I love the singing that we would do. We would do singing in church, and we would do singing before we ate. We always sang a prayer or would sing afterwards. But I also remember singing on the trails. When we were carrying heavy water jugs, we would sing to bring the joy, even when it was hard. So yeah, I am so flooded with memories. It's hard to pick just one. But to me, Koinonia, it's not just a place, it's a community, and it's a spirit. And even when you're not here, I carry Koinonia in my heart. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Hi, Anita. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Glad you're here. Just give us your name and when you were first at Koinonia, and tell me just your favorite memories of the camp. If there's anything special you'd like to share with us.
I'll give a shout out to Family Camp. It was our first introduction to Koinonia in around 1976. And it's been a staple in our life ever since, and also in my family's life, and times of healing and support, and a safe and wonderful community to be a part of. We love it. We consider it home.
Good morning, and we're at Koinonia's 60th anniversary. Let's share your name and how you came to be at Koinonia.
My name is Matt Baumhart, and I came to Koinonia in July of 2021 to serve as the retreat director. Prior to that, I had only been on site one time in June for my interview with Kathleen, where I caught a very large fish and made Art jealous in the boat, but had a good time. Saw a lot of potential. That's what, everywhere I looked, there was potential. So that's what drove me to Koinonia, from no history of Koinonia before my site tour.
Thank you so much, and we're certainly glad you're here.
My name is Steve Manlove. I'm here because I've sort of gotten involved with Koinonia a little bit in the past few years, as it's been kind of rethinking itself. I've got a long history with Koinonia. It's a very important part of my life and my family's life, since my father was one of the people who was here when it began. I've got a few memories that I think are just worth sharing about this. I remember when Bob Nervig came to Detroit to meet with my dad to talk about Koinonia before it had ever started. And I was about in first grade at that time. And I remember sitting under the kitchen table while they were talking, and I remember, I don't remember the actual, content of the conversation, but I remember the spirit of the conversation. And it was two, really young men at that time who were visioning and thinking about what they could do if they had a piece of land and could develop a camp in, near New York City, And these were guys who had known each other back in Minneapolis when they were in college sort of days. They both worked, I think, for the YMCA back then, and worked with small groups of kids. They were always into kids, and so here now they had this opportunity, and it was just a vision, a dream. Could it happen? But I remember the excitement. I remember thinking as a kid, something big is going to happen here. I don't know what it's all about, but looking back, my dad was an executive for the Detroit YMCA at that time, and he left that job to come here, and I don't know. I guess he believed that they were going to raise money and things were going to go well. And I remember coming out here. I remember the first time I walked on this land. There was just the farmhouse. The lakes were there, but you could hardly find them. I mean, there was no trails to the lakes. I mean, you could drive around to the lake, but going down straight to the lake, there was no trails. And we bushwhacked our way through, and I remember just as a little kid being with my dad and thinking, this was such an adventure, going, exploring this new place, and then I remember once they started and they were going. I remember driving up to Koinonia with my dad in a truck, and it was probably a 1-ton truck, an old one that had the stick shift on the floor. And I remember my dad saying, "Well, you can help me shift," and I'd put my hand on the shift, and he'd put his hand over my hand, and we would shift, and we would drive up in the night, and it would be just like, oh wow, this is really. Everything was a great adventure for me, and especially being with my dad. And then they started camp, and the very first day of camp, I think the cook who they'd hired didn't show up, wasn't going to come, and so my mother became the cook, and that was during that first summer. She quickly learned how to cook for a group of people, and but it left my brother and I, my brother was a year older than me, his name was Mike. We were free, and we spent that summer and the next several years just wandering around and exploring and finding how to get to different places, and getting down to the lake and fishing and swimming when we shouldn't have been swimming with other people without anybody around. And it was a fairly magical experience for a little kid, who.
How old were you then?
What's that?
How old were you then?
It was between. I was between 7 and 12, I think, when we were here. We left after I completed 6th grade, so between 2nd and 6th grade. So that was my early years, and I wanted to share the magic of the dream, and even I could feel it, I could sense it, even though I didn't really understand it, and then it's very, very exciting to see what the dream became. I did come back and work here in 77 and 78. By then it was more developed. My dad was gone. Bob Nervig was the director at that time. And it was a whole, different thing, but still had this, their vision was of doing camping in the wilderness, not taming the wilderness, but being with the wilderness, almost a leave no trace kind of model of, we'll camp in the woods, we will pick up our stuff and leave when we're done, and you won't be able to know we were there. It continued to be that way, at least until the 77, 78 years when I was here. And by then, of course, the other side of the lake that's where most of the campers were. Was over there in the homestead in the Lenni Lenape village and the future village, and it really brought a lot of people, a lot of young people, a lot of us who are at this reunion here to the wilderness, and we learned how to be there with it, how to be part of it, and we were our skills at coping were honed by some of the adventures and misadventures that occurred in the wilderness. How do you carry your food to where you are going to eat and survive that experience? What do you do when you're, canoeing down the Delaware River and there's a thunderstorm and lightning, and or all of a sudden you have cold weather when you're all wet? Those kinds of issues.
Oh, I know about it.
Yeah, I know you do. But everybody does, right? Who was
one of camp?
Yeah.
That was part of the deal.
Yeah, and that's, there's something really good about that. I mean, kids, I don't want to, say kids today have a different, but we need to actually provide that experience for kids so that they can also be honed by the experience of a little bit of adversity, and being out in the wilderness, being out in nature really lends itself to that. If you don't have that, you go home. Recently I was up in our ranch in South Dakota, and I was out riding, moving cattle with a kid who was in senior year in high school, and we were out there in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden we have a thunderstorm come up, and it just hails like crazy. And we're on these horses, and they're not too excited about the hail, and he looks at me and he says, "Well, what do we do now?" And I said, "Well, we just sit here. There's nothing to do. We are going to be in a hailstorm, and we're going to try to do our best to not get injured, but we're going to deal with this, and eventually it'll stop, and then we'll be on to the next thing." But I was thinking, I was really so happy that he had that experience. You don't just go inside. Right. Sometimes you have to just deal with the world as it is, and that's not just weather and nature, but it's also relationships and work experiences and that kind of thing. So
Here we are at Koinonia. Welcome to the 60th anniversary. Please give me your names and when you first came to camp, or just anything about. And I'd like to hear about your memories about camp and what made it important to you, and what was your favorite thing, and why you're here today.
And first time at camp was before it was opened. My father was on the original board. And we went down. He said, "I'm going to show you the beach." And we went down the road that is now gorgeous. Getting from the, and we got in there, and we got stuck in the mud. And I said, "Oh, so this is the place we're going to go." I was 12 years old. So then went to the first session of camp in '63, and
I had been invited by Mr. Villanin to come and join him and his son Rick to see this new camp that we were having. And I was a Brooklyn girl, and they brought me up here by the farmhouse. And when I was there they said, how do you like the camp? And I said, where is the camp? And they said, right here. And I said, well, where do you sleep? And then they pointed to the ground. And honestly, I didn't know that people did that. I was from Brooklyn, and this was foreign to me. So I thought, I didn't know what to think about that.
Well,
But then I did come the first year, and the fires, and we soaked up
In the lake,
and jumped in the lake to clean ourselves and our clothes.
came out full of slime.
yeah,
And we dug
privies.
pits for the privy and also for the garbage. We buried garbage. And we carried water bags and soaped the pots, and it was hard. It was always hard.
But boy, did
But it
we
was
learn.
good. We
Oh
learned
my
a lot.
gosh, I learned what Koinonia was, fellowship. I learned forgiveness, because when you live together for 2 weeks, 12 days at a time, and you have to depend on each other. I guess so I learned, interdependence and having fun.
And then we were on staff together after a while. And Paul and I were always put in a special group. We were in Charlie's group.
Charlie knew.
And other people would go down the Delaware to learn how to do that. And our group would go up the Delaware. And other people would walk on the Adirondack Trail.
Yeah, overnight hike.
And we would find a mountain that's never been hiked, and we would bushwhack up the mountain. And so we were bushwhacking up that mountain, and then we laid there that night. We couldn't set anything up. We just laid out
on the packs, because that was our bedding.
But the being together with the children and just having the community really changed me. And then we had that again as we got older, and we had the conference center. We would come
and family
here.
camp.
We would
the
have
same
family
thing.
camp. Was wonderful. We just got away from everything and learned and met people. And now we have this extended family that really is family. And we can come here and meet them, and it's just like the blink.
1963.
It's just like in the blink of an eye, we are in Koinonia together again. And it's been a blessing, and that's why this needs to go further. And I think we're called back. Today we saw a miracle. We saw that the camp is being fixed, and it's beautiful, and it's cherished, and it's loved again. And there's a new calling, and it will feed the future. And they will experience some of the same koinonia that we have been blessed with, and that has blessed our families. And we have friendships that never end. There's a group of us sitting here right now, and I cherish all of you, and it is a miracle.
As I went through my parish ministry, the two congregations in New York in which I was pastor, this place played a great role in congregational life. Would always bring up youth retreats, family retreats, men's retreats, women's retreats. And so they understood what the word koinonia means, and it strengthened the ministry that they had back home. So it's been wonderful, like it was supposed to be.
And we need to
And will
pass
be.
it on. We need to continue to pass this on
Next 60.
for the next 60, and for all these, people who are struggling today. And this is the place. It's a gift to the church. It's the best kept gift to the church. And so I'm so thankful to all that stepped in and took my place. Because I remember Paul and I, we were on the board together. We've done many different aspects of this camp together. And now it's time for the next generation to step up and love this place and plug in and
Keep it going.
and make this a place that has Christ at the center and where we can be fed, nurtured, and loved.
And be able to share.
Well, thank you both so much. And I'm just glad to be part of the Koinonia family with you.
I started coming here as a camper in the late 70s, I want to say 1978, and became a CIT. I was a camper from that point on and was a CIT in 1982 and on staff in 1983. So if I were to talk about my most memorable memory, it would be High Adventure. It was the one program I did not want to do, and I told Pastor Bob, I will do anything but High Adventure. So he decided to put me on High Adventure, and that's what made a huge difference in my life going forward. It basically showed me I can do anything from that point forward. I've made some of the best friends of my life. One is sitting here and one is sitting over here. And we've been friends ever since the 70s. So with that, I'll pass over to Sue Thorson.
And they're all walking by us. Sue Thorson, and I started coming here in, I think my family started coming here in the early 70s. And I think in 1977 or 76, and I was a camper, and then, as Kathy said, was a CIT in 1982. And I think that was one of the most memorable years for me, even though I stayed on as staff until 1984. But that was when I think I made my closest friendships and the most lasting friendships and relationships that I've had at Koinonia. Your turn.
Hello, I'm Susan Ferraro, formerly Myers. I came to Koinonia for the first time as a Pathfinder in 1974, but I've known about Koinonia my whole life. My aunts were some of the originals from when it started, so I was super excited to be here. And then I stayed as a camper, and then I was the CIT in 1982 with these two beautiful ladies next to me. I came back for following year for support staff, but I think my memorable year is also as a CIT. I think that the lessons you learn here, being independent, how to take care of yourself, there are things that I learned here that I would apply, and there's a bug on me. How unusual. The things that we've learned here at Koinonia, I've taken throughout my life, and the independence, the ability to think outside of the box, the ability to make something work, how you going to do it, and just to keep putting your foot forward and no matter what. I love Koinonia, and it's a place where I always have my inner peace when I feel like I'm here. So, thank you.
Do you have anything to say about that?
I'm particularly excited to be here with my kids. Bo is 13 and Kate is 9, and I think this is, while they've both been here a few times this year, really marks when I think they can really start building lasting memories of their experiences here. Bo's been able to come for some of the volunteer weekends and looks forward to coming back. Kate enjoys anything in the outdoors, so the environment here is so rich with energy and love and community. It's really wonderful to see them both thrive here. So I look forward to having Koinonia be in their lives as they get older, and hopefully we'll be here when Koinonia is 120, or even or beyond. So so there's a few things that I'm really excited about for the next 60.
I think for the next 60, I'm excited to see a new generation come through here and learn some of the things that we learned and bring those experiences into their lives. Unfortunately, my kids have not had an opportunity to come here. We live in Florida, and my boys are 18 and 20. And hopefully, once schedules coordinate, maybe we can all come here on a family vacation and they can see what has shaped me. I have prayed all year that nothing would stand in the way of me coming here for this celebration, and I'm excited to see the next group come through. And we've already met some people that have been campers after us and staff after us, and it's been great to just have that constant community with these people. It doesn't matter if you know them or not, we all feel the same. Sue, you have something on the next 60?
This weekend, it's really nice to see the enthusiasm here. I think as the world evolves, as things evolve, I wish I would be around in 60 to see what Koinonia is going to evolve to. I know that sometimes change is super hard and it's hard to adapt. And I think we're going to have to make adjustments and figure out how to thrive and keep the message that we've always taught here at Koinonia. How are we going to do that as we evolve and as the world evolves, and how to keep this sacred ground that gives you peace and gives you community and teaches you about love and hope and spirituality and just having that safe haven. How do we continue to do that, and how do we attract people? I'm looking forward to seeing the evolution of the next 60 of Koinonia.
Sure. My name is Bill Gohl, and I was a camper in 84, 85, and 86. And then I was on summer staff from 92 to 98. My best memories of Koinonia are really wrapped up in those years as a summer staff person. Not only did I bring some of my best friends to this place, but I made some of them while I was in this place. And I can't think of a place that has more profoundly shaped me, apart from the congregations where I worshiped growing up, but a place that's more profoundly shaped me for ministry, both as a baptized child of God and as a pastor of the church. When I went off to college, I was expecting to become a music teacher, but there was something that God was up to very consistently through the people here, just encouraging me, well, have you ever considered serving God as a pastor? And I always thought it was funny when people said that. And after student teaching with third graders, teaching them how to play plastic recorders, I finally was open to hearing the call. And those next summers of working here, I started to soak up something more than just taking up space, but soaking up the faith that's imbued in this sacred place and people. Those memories are wrapped up in so many people, but particularly the last executive director I served with was Pastor Kathleen Coran, who stepped in at a very difficult time in the life of the camp, and who righted a ship that was really going off in the wrong direction. And then in the encouragement of a lot of people, but particularly Anita Giddings, who really became, with the Helvigs and the Bleefernicks and others, became that Koinonia family. My family wasn't invested in Koinonia, but I became, as a camper and a staff, sort of connected. That's enough.
Well, I'm glad you came this weekend, and thank you so much for sharing. I love doing this because I learn more about people sitting across the camera from me. So,
Well, I love that this is a way that you return to the camp
mm,
through the ways that you've been gifted.
yeah, thank
I think
you.
everyone wants you to do something, but this is part of your gifts and passions for communications. And if there's ever been a cry of the camp, it's that we don't communicate as clearly and effectively as we should.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
thanks for
Well,
helping to capture some voices, particularly voices that we need to remember before they're not with us.
exactly.
I was thinking, Bishop Manlove, who's here. I knew Jerry Manlove very briefly.
Yeah,
who would
me
come
too.
to return for
Mm-hmm.
different things. And to this day, I wish that we could record him and Bob Nervig talking to each other.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Because whenever they came back for an anniversary or a reunion when I was here, it was more for them, to reminisce, and then for us to learn and sit at their feet and listen. So I wish that we had captured some of that.
Well, I'm glad we captured what we did today.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, well, my name is Tom. I started in 1964 as a camper and spent the better part of the next 7 summers here, camper, junior staff, counselor, and right through till 1970. In 1970, when I went away to college, my freshman English composition teacher gave us an assignment to write our memoirs. And when you're 18, your memoirs are mostly of your better parts of your teenage years, and for me, that was camp. So I wrote an extensive part as my assignment in my class about all my camp experiences. I still have that book 52 years later. And one of them was about a group that went on a survival hike. So this is what I wrote in 1970, remembering that experience. This session of camp turned out to be wonderful because Harry was in the group. He was an unbelievable person. His name was Warren Erickson, but everyone knew him as Harry simply because he did hairy things. He was a physical specimen, one of the strongest guys I've ever seen, but he was crazy. He did things like break his leg on a motorcycle and so many other hairy things. He just livened things up. Keith was the counselor, and Steve Frederick was also in my group after a 2-year absence. The sessions was fun, but the survival hike was the big thing. We either had to hike around the property or go on a survival hike, and because Harry wanted the survival hike, we all wanted the survival hike. We left after breakfast in the morning, took nothing but our sleeping bags, knives, a frying pan, matches, and a compass. For food, we planned on apples right off the tree, berries off the bush, and a rattlesnake or two. When we reached our camping area, we gathered enough firewood to last the night and then went hunting for food. We found a stream about a half a mile away that was great for our drinking problems, but our food problem wasn't so easily solved. The apples were green and scarce. The berries didn't add up to very much. And the one rattler we caught, killed and skinned and fried was a little one and didn't provide much meat. But we treated it anyway as delicious. I remember not wanting to eat it at first until I smelled the aroma, and it was wonderful. It tasted just like chicken. Killing it was cool. We all had to get long sticks with a fork on the ends, stick it into the ground, and Harry claimed it. And since there was no challenge, he jabbed the stick into the ground, cut off the head so it couldn't move, skinned it, and then we saved the rattles and we fried the meat. It was a great feeling for me to know that I could survive without any real food around At least I thought I could, which is just as good for the ego. I was a real woodsman now. And ultimately, after all the years at camp, I finished last paragraph by writing about it, by saying, it's really amazing how much camp changed me. I met a whole different group of friends, friends who were friends for life. Learned so much more about outdoor living, child psychology, and people in general, and fell in love with nature. It had more effect on my growing up than any other factor, and changed me more than anything. And in fact, I've gone on 30 to 35 different canoe trips on the Delaware River. I'm still hiking in the Catskills up until a few years ago. All the things that the camp introduced me to, I'm still doing, and doing it because this is what changed me.
Hi, Belva. Welcome to Koinonia. And I'm doing this little video. I'd like to know your first name, your name, full name, and when you first came to Koinonia, and what is your favorite memory, or if you have anything special that you'd like to talk about as you're in your time at Koinonia.
Oh, my name before I was married was Belva Shanerock, and I was a counselor here in 1965. And then I got married, and I married Bert Locker. And in 1967, we came here, and he was hired as the director. There's so many memories. I think I was thinking about this, and one of the things about Koinonia is it's such an affirming place. And so many kids, and myself included, feel affirmed when they come here because they're surrounded by love. I think that's one of the most important things. I was a counselor for high school kids first year, and then when I was back with Bert, I took care of the office basically on site, and so I got to know lots of people, and that
Myself included.
myself included. Yes, maybe more when I was a counselor. It was very challenging. I have a friend, Brad Flink, who said that was the hardest job he'd ever done, was be a counselor. I remember one funny story, and that was when I was helping with the horses at the end of a session, and they were taking them back to the fields, and I thought, oh, I can do this. This will be fun. So I got on. We were bareback, and all of a sudden, they took off because they knew where they were going, and I hung on for dear life. I thought, I cannot fall. And I didn't, but that was quite the ride. I worked for Jerry Manlove when I was a counselor, and appreciated that relationship a lot. And then when I was married and came back as the director's wife, I was very comfortable because I had been here before and I knew a lot of people, and the staff was just great. And I didn't feel, I mean, I just felt like a part of them. So that was nice, rather than never having been here and trying to get acquainted, etc.
What was it like living in camp?
Living in camp, I loved it, even in the trailer. We had a dog, Pepper, who was, everybody remembers Pepper. People have told me stories about Pepper this weekend, so I thought that was fun. Yeah, it was nice just to be close, and I was telling somebody, several of the staff and I would get together maybe once a week and play pinochle at night in the farmhouse. Nobody knew that, except those who played, probably. So that was fun too. I remember good times. Carol, I think Carol Jensen was one of them. So I hated leaving when we finally did leave, but
When did you leave? What was the last year?
72.
72. Okay.
But Koinonia is terrific.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you came to this event. I really wouldn't be the same without you.
Thank you.
My roots to Koinonia really run deep. In fact, my grandfather was a big part of this place, even though he never got to visit it. My grandfather, Tom Reinertson, was good friends with Bob Nervig back in Brooklyn at Our Saviors. And but my grandfather had he had a heart condition, and so but Bob counseled him a lot through his illness, and they would share their dreams. And Bob said, "I have a dream of having an outdoor ministry, of having a chapel." And sadly, my grandfather passed away. But his widow, my grandmother, Dorothy Reinertson, took some of the money and the inheritance and gave it here to Koinonia. Actually, it was even before Koinonia was formally organized, but they gave the money to start the Chapel of the Pines. And so my family connection here really begins with my grandfather, and not just with Don Solvay and Peter Reinertson.
That is quite a story. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've seen pictures of Tom Reinertson's plaque on the chapel, and I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Now I know. It's all comes together.
Comes full circle, just like
Right.
the Koinonia symbol.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that.